You've seen the FAANG video. You've seen the engineers making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year writing code in hoodies at Google and Meta. And you thought, that's the ceiling. It's not. Because while Silicon Valley was celebrating its stock refreshes, there's a parallel universe operating in total silence, in offices with no logos on the door, no listed employees on LinkedIn, no press releases. A universe where 25-year-olds with PhDs in mathematics are making more in a single bonus check than most engineers make in a decade. This is the world of quantitative finance. This is Citadel. This is Jane Street. This is Renaissance Technologies. And today, we are going inside, rank by rank, to show you exactly what your life looks like when you survive the most brutal meritocracy ever built by Wall Street. Welcome back. If you're new here, subscribe now, because what you're about to see will change how you think about compensation, career, and sanity forever. First, a quick calibration, because quant finance is not investment banking. It's not the Wolf of Wall Street. This is something far more cold, far more mathematical, and, for the people who make it, far more lucrative. Quantitative finance is the application of advanced mathematics, statistics, and computer science to model financial markets and extract what the industry calls alpha, the excess return above the market. Alpha is the holy grail. Every quant fund on Earth is in a constant, furious race to find it, protect it, and monetize it before anyone else does. The weapons of this war? Stochastic calculus, machine learning, statistical arbitrage, high-frequency trading, or HFT, executing millions of trades in microseconds based on patterns invisible to the human eye. The players? Firms like Citadel Securities, Jane Street, 2 Sigma, D.E. Shaw, Millennium Management. These are not banks, they are algorithm factories, and they pay accordingly. Now, the ranks. Unlike tech, with its L3 through L10 progression, quant finance has its own brutal, silent hierarchy, and each level doesn't just represent a title change, it represents a completely different psychological experience. Let's go through them, one by one. The first ascent. Level 1. The new grad junior trader. The survivor. Total compensation, $300,000 to $500,000. You survived the math gauntlet. We're talking about the most notoriously brutal interview process in all of finance. Jane Street doesn't care about your GPA. They'll hand you a probability puzzle at 9 a.m. and expect you to derive the answer live, out loud, while explaining your reasoning while they poke holes in every assumption you make. Citadel will give you a market microstructure problem that most PhD students have never seen. If you're here as a junior trader or junior quant, you passed. You're in the top 0.1% of mathematical problem solvers in the country. Congratulations. Now your real education begins. Your base salary is around $150,000 to $200,000. But that's not the number that matters. The number that matters is your total compensation. And at top-tier HFT firms, your first-year bonus can hit $150,000 to $300,000. You are, statistically, the highest-paid 23-year-old in any room you walk into. But you feel nothing like it, because your entire existence right now is defined by a single metric, P&L, profit and loss. Every single day, your performance is visible. Every trade you touch is logged. Every decision is scrutinized. You are not building a career, you are building a track record, and if that track record goes red for long enough, the conversation happens fast. The floor doesn't care that you got a 4.0 from MIT. The market doesn't care. Your P&L is your only language here. You spent your days obsessing over what traders call alpha, that tiny measurable edge. You backtest strategies. You study market microstructure. You learn that in high-frequency trading, the difference between profit and loss can come down to literally microseconds, the speed of light from a data center in New Jersey to a matching engine in Chicago. You're not sleeping much, you're not going to the gym much, you eat lunch at your desk, and you love it because the scoreboard is always on, and right now you're still trying to prove you deserve to be in the room. Industry secret number 1, the P&L pressure clock. At most top quant funds, junior traders and researchers operate under an unspoken rule. Consistent negative P&L for 2 to 3 consecutive months triggers an informal performance review. 4 to 6 months, the conversation happens, quietly, professionally, and permanently. No dramatic firing. You'll receive a generous severance, a glowing reference, and a firmly closed door. The industry calls this managing you out. It happens to smart people constantly. The math doesn't lie, and neither does the firm.
The architect of the black box, L3, Level 3. The quantitative researcher, the brain. Total compensation, $600,000 to $1 million plus. If the junior trader is the soldier, the quantitative researcher is the general who designs the battle plan and never shows up to the fight. This is the transition that separates quant careers. The researchers who make it to Level 3 have stopped executing trades. They've moved from implementation to invention. Their job is to find the next strategy, to discover a new signal that no one else has found, model it with rigorous mathematics, and hand it to the trading desk wrapped in statistical validation so ironclad that the PM bets real money on it. This is where stochastic calculus goes from textbook to weapon. Brownian motion, Ito's lemma, stochastic differential equations, these aren't exam topics here. They're the literal grammar of every model you build. You're using them to describe the random walk of asset prices, to price exotic derivatives, to build the mathematical skeleton of what the industry calls the black box, the proprietary trading algorithm that no one outside the firm will ever see. The researchers at Renaissance Technologies don't read financial news. They look for patterns in data that no human could see. That's the job. Your world becomes very quiet here. No Bloomberg terminal screaming at you, no market open panic. You might work for 6 months on a single strategy. You might go down 12 dead ends before finding one that backtests cleanly. The pressure is slower, deeper, more existential. Because if you're not producing alpha on paper, you're not producing anything at all. But the compensation reflects the leverage of your work. A single strategy you develop might be responsible for generating $500 million in returns per year. Your cut of that? Around $700,000 to $1 million in total compensation. And the best researchers have multiple successful strategies running simultaneously. Industry secret number 2. Gardening leave and the golden cage. Here's something they don't teach you in university. When a quant researcher leaves a fund, they aren't often allowed to simply walk out the door and start the next job. Most senior quant employment contracts contain non-compete clauses and a provision called gardening leave, a period of 6 to 18 months where you continue to be paid your full salary but are legally prohibited from working for a competitor. You sit at home, you collect your $700,000 paycheck, and you wait. The fund pays this price to protect their intellectual property, the strategies you built. You cannot take those alpha signals to 2 Sigma or Millennium. The knowledge stays in the box.
Level 5. LEVEL 5. The portfolio manager. PM. The risk taker. Total compensation, $2 million to $10 million plus. This is where the game changes entirely. The portfolio manager at a quant hedge fund is not a manager in any traditional corporate sense. They don't manage people, they manage risk. Specifically, they manage a book, a portfolio of algorithmic strategies that together control anywhere from $500 million to several billion dollars of the fund's capital. And here is the most important truth about this level. Eat what you kill. Most large multi-manager quant funds, places like Millennium, Citadel, Point72, operate on a revenue share model.
As a PM, you take home somewhere between 10% and 20% of the profits your book generates. If your book generates $50 million in a year, you take home between $5 million and $10 million. This sounds extraordinary, and it is, but there is a dark side to this equation that almost no one talks about. You also absorb the losses. If your book underperforms, if your Sharpe ratio drops, if your max drawdown exceeds the fund's risk limits, the capital gets pulled. Not gradually, not with a polite meeting. It gets pulled fast and surgically until you are managing nothing. The fund gave you the capital as an investment, and they will reallocate it to a PM who is producing alpha. I've seen brilliant PMs lose $200 million in 6 weeks. The fund absorbed it, but the PM, they never came back. This is also the level where you stop having a work-life balance and start having a work-existence balance. The market follows you everywhere. A geopolitical event at 2 a.m. triggers a risk scenario you've been modeling. You wake up, you check the positions, sometimes you make a call. Your family learns to read your face when you walk through the door, whether the book had a good day or a bad one. Burnout here is not a metaphor, it is a statistical event, it is a measurable risk factor. The funds know it, they plan around it. Industry secret number 3. Non-competes in the billion-dollar prison. At the PM level, the non-compete clauses stop being boilerplate and start being existential. The strategies in your book represent hundreds of millions in annual recurring revenue for the fund. Your departure with that intellectual capital in your head is a genuine financial threat. Top quant funds enforce non-competes that can run 18 to 24 months post-departure, with legal teams experienced enough to win injunctions overnight. One famous case involved a PM who was legally prevented from launching his own fund for 2 years while being paid full salary by his former employer. His gardening leave cost the fund over $14 million. They paid it without blinking because the alpha he was protecting was worth over $300 million annually.
They paid it without blinking because the alpha he was protecting was worth over $300 million annually. Level 7. Managing Director, Partner. The Architect. Total compensation, $20 million to $100 million plus. Almost no one gets here. The managing director, the partner at a quant fund, is not a title you're promoted into. It is a title you survive into. At this level, you are not just generating alpha. You are the person who decides what alpha is worth chasing. You allocate capital. You set risk limits. You hire and fire PMs. You are, in the truest sense of the word, the architect of the machine. Your compensation at this level is almost incomprehensible. Partners at Renaissance Technologies' Medallion Fund, which has averaged over 60% annual returns before fees, have taken home hundreds of millions of dollars in single years. The founders of top HFT firms like Citadel's Ken Griffin have crossed into billionaire territory. This is not FAANG money. This is generational wealth, built on mathematics compressed into years. But here's what they don't tell you in the case studies and the Forbes profiles. At this level, you don't trade the market, you influence it. The order flow from a firm like Citadel Securities handles roughly 25% of all U.S. equity trading volume on any given day. When you are the person steering that ship, your decisions are not just portfolio decisions, they are decisions with structural consequences for markets themselves. That power does not come free. The psychological weight of operating at this scale, where a miscalculation in your risk framework can cost the fund billions of dollars, is not something you manage with mindfulness apps and vacation days. The people who get here tend to have shed most of what most people would recognize as a normal life somewhere around level 3. At this level, you're not playing the market, you're part of the market. Some days, you are the market. And yet, every year, a new cohort of MIT and Cambridge math graduates starts the journey, because the promise at the top of this pyramid is not just financial, it's intellectual. It's the idea that the most rigorous thinking a human brain can produce can be directly, measurably rewarded, not with a performance review and a 5% raise, but with a number on a P&L screen that changes your family's reality for generations. That's why they come. That's why they stay. That's why the few who make it never fully leave, even when they're theoretically retired. They're still building models, still watching signals, still looking for the next edge. Because once you've played this game at the highest level, nothing else has the same resolution. So there it is. Every rank in quantitative finance, from the new grads surviving their first options expiry to the managing director who built the black box that earns more in a morning than most people earn in a lifetime. What separates this world from FAANG, from consulting, from investment banking, is the total absence of ambiguity. There's no office politics that can save you here, no manager who likes your communication style. The model works or it doesn't. The alpha is there or it isn't. Your P&L is positive or it's negative. It is the purest, most brutal, most intellectually demanding meritocracy that finance has ever built. And it will chew through brilliant people without mercy because the market is smarter than all of us. And it has infinite patience. The question isn't whether you're smart enough to get in. The question is whether you're built for what happens after. Leave your answer below. The most interesting responses get featured in the next video. Would you trade your sanity for a $5 million bonus? Drop a yes if yes, a no if no, and a meh if you're already in the math gauntlet. Let's see where this audience stands. Next video. The real estate mogul ranks, from broke house flipper to $500 million portfolio. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, you know the drill.